Today's episode is sponsored by Billy Keel's Advisory Services. If you want to learn more about how to make your 99 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com.
Helping you build freedom without losing your edge. This is the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels.
Some people would say it's intimidating to speak to someone who is an eternal optimist. I don't think so. It's very, very motivating. It's even better when that optimist is a natural-born problem solver. And also, guess what? Kind of started a business career a little bit by accident. She's going to tell us a little bit more about that. So today, our guest... Actually, you know what? Here, I'm going to tee this up because this is really, really interesting for everyone. Because I know so many of you love what it's like to be in a corporate career that you enjoy. And also, when you have that curiosity to do something else, you kind of want to scratch the itch. Well, this guest, who is not only had a very successful 22-year corporate career at one place, love that. She's also now continuing to volunteer, connect people, and also as an entrepreneur herself is making impact around the globe. Today, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Maria Kelly. Maria, welcome to the show.
Oh, what an introduction. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Billy.
Yeah, this is a pleasure. It's a long time coming. I know we've been talking about this for a while, and I really appreciate you finding the time, carving out the time to get here and speak to the Going Long family from all around the globe. So really appreciate it. And I know you're going to make such a positive impact on others and give us very actionable insights and things that, we can use to emulate and maybe achieve even a little bit of what you've been able to achieve so far. So
thank you.
And one thing that I know you make it really, really easy. So I actually want to ask Maria Kelly.
Yes.
That's an inside joke between the two of us, and you will find out more about this as you're watching and listening. I've shared a number of different things about you, right? Mm-hmm. And what I'd really love for you to do is help the Going Long family understand more about you and what are some of the different steps that you've taken to get to this point in your journey. And then we'll see where you and I take the conversation from there.
Oh, wow. How far back am I going to go? Well, you mentioned my corporate career. As you said, I fell into it totally by accident. It wasn't something planned. I was looking for a job and happened to be one available in this company, which was Sotheby's, the auction house.
Oh, awesome.
I knew nothing about art. I knew nothing about the auction world, but I needed to pay my bills. And so I showed up with my 3-line CV at the time. It was like one of my first jobs. And just thought I'd drop it off and they'd probably just laugh me away, but got an interview immediately, clicked with the interviewer and got my first job at Sotheby's and started at the bottom as an administrator and worked my way up till when I left, I was overseeing the global luxury division for the company. So that was, I'd say, one big key moment for me was really joining Sotheby's. And then I was overseeing the Swiss business when I was offered a job in New York, still with Sotheby's at the headquarters to oversee the Americas specialist department. So that was another big one because I was moving with my family over to New York, which was very exciting and scary at the time from small Geneva, Switzerland. But very happy I did that because it really, changed our lives a lot. Loved it, spent 4 years in New York, and then I was offered this global role to oversee the global luxury division based in London. So moved to London, which I have to admit I didn't love as much as New York. But it was still another 4 years in London, which was really nice and discovering a new country, way of working. And then finally, 5 years ago, just before the pandemic, I left Sotheby's and decided to start my own business and we moved to Barcelona. So I've been a bit all over the globe. Those are, I think, 5 key moments that are linked to places we lived in. But each time we moved, there was a big transition in my life. And I don't regret any of these decisions because I don't think I'd be here if I didn't take any of these opportunities when they showed up for me.
Yeah. And, one of the things I would say is, you've already gone from like Switzerland, US, UK, and it's like, and then Spain, it's kind of like, wow, you've done so many different things, but you talked about this transformation, and each one of these opportunities, they happen for you. Then they allowed you to get to this point in your journey. It's just maybe you could talk a little bit more about that kind of. You talked about your 3-line CV and you needed to pay the bills, but you went from being able to not just pay the bills, get a job, but you were leading global transformation and doing it in one of the most luxurious, let's say, brands that is known around the world. So talk to us a little bit about how that transformation happened for you, because you could have just stayed there and kept going, well, you know what? I'm just going to keep doing my job. I'm going to get my money and I'm going to pay my bills. But you developed a very successful career, and maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what were some of the motivators for you that helped you to continue to move up.
I think first, I loved my job. It was an amazing company to work with, interesting people, amazing, fabulous art. And yeah, I was lucky. I stayed 22 years. And I think some people nowadays, especially, people are like, 22 years. Why would you say 22 years in a company? And even when I joined, people were there for 10 years already. And I was like, never say 10 years. But I didn't stay 10 years or 22 years in the same role. That's the thing. My role, approximately in average, every 2 years, I changed role or job or responsibility. So there was constant evolution. So that was the thing that was very motivating, that it was a company where you could walk in the door, start at the bottom and get to the top, which is not, it doesn't happen everywhere. It wasn't an opportunity that was given in every companies. It's also, I think, because I joined in Switzerland, in Geneva, it was one of the small, it's a big office financially for the company, but it's a small structure, meaning that you had to wear many hats. So you had to take on many responsibilities. And if you were willing to do a bit more and take on more, which I was always very keen to learn more, do something else. And I was always putting my hands up to do things. I was given more and more responsibilities. And, that's how it worked at the time. I don't know if nowadays it's still, but I believe it, that if you make people aware of what you want to do and that you're ready to go the extra mile and do a bit more and learn and be there and available and be easy to work with, I'd say that's a big quality nowadays. You're given those opportunities, because companies are always looking for people who are ready to run with stuff and just do it, which was something I did. And I think that's what created the opportunities. And I also built relationships within the company. And that, I think, again, is what gave me those, people would think of me when opportunities came up. So I built strong relationships with people at all levels of the company, not just the people at the top, at the bottom, in the middle. And so people would say, oh, go to Maria for this or go to Maria for that. And after a moment, it just became like, okay, so Maria's the one who's doing all these things. We should give her more to do, and it just came naturally. So I think it's about being proactive. Your career is not going to happen to you. It can happen to you if you don't do anything about it, or you can take charge. And it wasn't a career plan. I never planned to have a career. It wasn't something in my mind like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get there and this is what I want to be in 2 years. I had absolutely no plan. It was just like, oh, I enjoy doing this, I'll do more of that. And it just naturally happened for me. And and then, be open when people offer you things. Don't say, oh, I don't think I'm ready, or is it really for me? Just jump in and give it a shot,
So, and as you talk about giving it a shot, I heard things like you're a constant learner, someone who is developing relationships. And I've also seen this from you, right? And understand that is one of the things that allows you to be an effective leader of people, whether it's in corporate or outside of corporate, right? Because life is kind of, life goes beyond the corporate walls, as we know. I'm also just curious, what role did mentorship play in you continuing to take roles maybe when you weren't quote unquote ready, or being able to help to see the path that can move forward, even when you weren't intentionally trying to move up the organization? I'm always curious, because I know in my 16-year corporate career, which with the same company and very similar to you, I know that there was a particular role that mentors played in my corporate career. And I'm just curious if you can talk to us about what that was like for you. Yeah,
definitely. I had a bunch of mentors along the way, and I'd say mentors / champions, because people were mentoring me, but were also championing me and putting my name out there, because they were people who were in the rooms where I wasn't. As I said, I was in Geneva, Switzerland. The headquarters of the company was New York, and London was the second biggest hub. And I've had some of my bosses, and interestingly, they were all men. not women. So it's men who helped me, grow up in my career and supported me and made sure that I had a voice at the table, which was great. And without them, I wouldn't have been there, because they're the ones that put me forward for when there were important projects or a retreat. We're doing this retreat with all the senior executives of the company. Maria should come. She's a high potential, whatever they call them, high potential talent, whatever. Yeah. And so they pushed me forward to be in these rooms with all these important people and build those relationships. And that's why I got offered the job in New York, because I found myself in the room with the managing director of New York, who then became my mentor as well. So yes, absolutely. You can't do it alone. There's no secret. You need to build those relationships with people who are going to be there to advise you, to support you, but also champion you and put you forward when you're not around.
Yeah. So having that person that kind of is along the path, that can see where the potential in you that you may not even see, or is your advocate, right? That is something that's also really, really important. And once again, these are the skills. I'm kind of setting this up for another question later. But that's an insider for the Going Long family. So you shouldn't know that part, Maria, yet. But just out of curiosity, so you are having these influences, you're building relationships, you have mentors that are at the table that are speaking on your behalf, and at the same time, you are getting this global experience, right? You're in different countries, and you're open to, and I would even say, Maria, that you're never really given any opportunities, because you're creating the opportunities, and that's the thing that I know that most of us forget. But you're creating the opportunities. You're staying open. You're staying as a curious learner. But with all of these really positive, awesome things happening and developing a career over 2 decades, at a certain point, it sounded like you wanted to also take a little bit of a break. And so with all these positive things that are happening in your career and the development, and going from the front line all the way to deputy general manager of a global division, what was it that was kind of getting you to say, hey, this is a really cool lifestyle. This is a great life in terms of the corporate life. And you were looking for something. Yeah, you were looking for something else as well.
Yeah, what's next? I mean, after 20 years, I started asking myself that question. The last few years, for several reasons. First of all, I think when you get to a certain level at the top, you spend less time doing the things you enjoy. Like the stuff that you really loved. You're not as close to the people as you used to be. There was a lot of things I liked doing that I wasn't doing anymore. There were a lot of change of management in the company, new CEO, new management coming in, change of strategy. So there was a lot going on, lots of politics. I wasn't having fun as much. And I always said to myself throughout my career, is like, the day I'm not having fun, that's the day I leave. Because what I loved about working at Sotheby's is you never knew what your day was going to be. Like you had like a pile of work to do, but usually by the end of the day, this much had piled up on top of it. There had been crazy stuff happening. It was a bit of a, it's a special world with art, art people and clients and collectors. And it was, you never knew what was happening. And that's what I loved about it. You were always on your toes. It was it was high stress because you had the auctions going up and down. So it always kept you engaged and excited. And the last 2 years, there was less of that and more of the, political things and lots of noise going on around the company. And I started thinking, maybe it's time to think about something else. But I just didn't know what that something else was, right? And I got to a point where I was like, okay, what's next? What could I do? And I kept thinking, well, I've been doing this for 22 years. What else could I do outside? You start doubting yourself, even though you've done some amazing things. You got to an incredible level. You're like, yeah, but what does that mean outside of this company? Does it mean anything? And the decision was taken for me because the company was purchased by a private investor, and they gave all the senior management a nice envelope to leave. So I was given that envelope, which I was very happy because it was the kick in the pants I needed to go out and figure out what I wanted to do next. And at that moment, I started talking. Well, I had a garden leave and all that. But after that time, I started having conversations to go back into a corporate world, into an exciting other business. But that's when I realized, I was like, wait a second, is that really what I want to do? And I thought, well, listen, I'm 48. If I want to do something, and the idea of doing my own business had started popping up during my garden leave, which is not something I'd ever thought about when I was working before. It never even occurred to me. But as I had time to pause and think about things, it came to me. And that's when I thought, you know what? If I don't try now, when am I going to do it, right? So I was in the last conversations for a really interesting job in London, which, by the way, I dodged a bullet because it was to be a director of musical theatres in London, which this is February 2020. So a month later, they were closing down for a year. So it was serendipity that I just backed out at the last minute and said, listen, I'm very sorry. I just realized that this is not what I want to do. And we decided to leave London and move to Barcelona with my husband and start our own business. And no regrets.
Yeah, no. Well, so yeah, when you make these decisions, it's at times you don't really understand, and then as time goes on, you hear or you start things become clearer. But one of the things that I really want to draw on is you said that about 2 years before the decision was made for you. You kind of had this feeling of not really enjoying the role so much more. There was some curiosity of what you wanted to be able to do, but it sounds also like you were not thinking of doing something on your own.
No.
But because I know that there was a certain point for me, for me, it was really, really clear because I started building a business on the side.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I thought about. But when you weren't enjoying it as much anymore, but you weren't really sure what you wanted to do next, what was going on? And the reason I'm asking the question is I think it happens to so many of us, especially when you're over 2 decades in any kind of corporate career. But because we don't know what to do next, we just kind of keep going through the motions. So was that what was happening with you or?
I was, and I was just so busy. So that's the crazy stuff. You're just so busy. You're like, you think about it, but then you're like, oh, you go back and, do the work. And I didn't have that time and it's only when I had the time to sit back and think that I thought, oh, maybe I could do something for myself. I'd never thought about it. And for me, it was just like, well, I guess I'll have to find another job in another company. It didn't occur to me that I could do something else, or that was even an option for me because I just couldn't, I didn't have the space in my brain to see that at that moment.
That sounds okay. And I appreciate you sharing that because it's one of the things that I call it's the corporate busyness, right? Not the corporate business, but the corporate busyness. Because we are just so, when you're in that role, and especially when you get to a certain level and you're making a certain amount of salary, it's like you're going to continue to, or at least the way that I grew up, like you had to work twice as hard as everybody else to be able to prove your worth and all this other kind of stuff, right? And so you don't give yourself the time, generally speaking, with most of the people I speak to, like you want to do something else, but you just don't know what to do. And so if the decision is made for you and you get a nice check and you get to sit in the garden for a little while, that usually feels really weird in the beginning sometimes, but ultimately it's like, oh, you know what? This is actually not too bad.
Yeah.
But so then you go to this kind of like assessment because you go through another process, and that's you were following the path that most do. You take some time off and then you go back and figure out what's going to be the next job. But then you had the wherewithal to say, I'm going to try to do something for myself. Yeah. So from the very first time that you tried something, was it successful? Has it been the same thing that you've been doing the entire time now?
Absolutely not.
As she says with a little smile. So if you're not watching the video version, everybody, you got to check out the video version because Maria's face just kind of went like ear to ear with a smile. So it didn't happen perfectly the first time. You're still here. You're smiling. You're talking about it. I know you're making massive positive impact, but tell us a little bit about what that journey's been like.
But I think you make the decision you want to start your own business, but then it's like, okay, well, what is it? What can I do? What is it that I know that I can sell, that I can, offer others? And for me at that moment, it was like, well, I've been leading people for 20 years. I can teach others how to do that. So leadership development, executive coaching seemed for me the obvious route. I went off and got a coaching diploma to make sure I had something in my pocket that validated that I knew what I was doing on top of my experience. Yeah. And I started doing that. And then it's funny because I think your clients find you also. So obviously, at first it was interesting, but I felt like I want to step away from corporate. I want to do less with corporate and I want to work with other businesses, but I kept getting, my network is corporate. So I kept getting pulled back into it and I couldn't get away from it. But I'd say in 2020, in 2023, there was a lot of layoffs. There were a lot of companies that were cutting their learning and development budgets. I was speaking to lots of HR departments telling me, listen, we're cutting our budgets so we don't have to fire people, basically. And that's when I thought, okay, so basically what I've decided to do, is like people are not paying for anymore. So that's going to be a problem. And at the same time, these people that were getting fired started coming to me to get career coaching. And so I started doing a bit of that. And 2023 was really big on career coaching. I had lots of career coaching clients. And then at the end of 2023, I started having entrepreneurs, small business owners coming to me and saying, would you do consulting for my business? Would you do coaching as a leader? And it was mainly, entrepreneurs who they had a successful business, but they got to a point they didn't know how to get the next level. Mm-hmm. So like, how do I do that transition and coaching them as leaders? And so I started doing that and I realized, wow, I really love this. I felt like I was having much more impact than in corporate world. I was able to have, quicker wins. We were able to make changes. They were much leaner than a corporate company. And the impact was bigger. And I just enjoyed working with these people. And so I decided, you know what? These are the people I want to work with now. I want to work with small businesses, entrepreneurs, helping them grow their businesses and see where that brings me. So that was like third transition. And recently this year, 2025, I started last 2 years learning, using AI a lot in my own business. When I realized how great it is and how it makes your life so much easier. And while I was coaching these clients, I realized they weren't using it. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not using AI? And so I started coaching them. Well, like saying, hey, you should use this tool. Hey, you should. And I thought, wait a second, there's something here. There's a business here. And so I went off and did a trainer, training certification as a AI trainer, and now I'm incorporating it into my my coaching of business owners and helping them on the consultation side and all that. How to integrate AI into their business to help them grow it. So I've made one big thing out of two things, which I think just makes sense. So very exciting, and but yeah, I've changed 4 times, and I think you have to go with the flow and follow what your clients want also.
Yeah. And so this is one of the things. So perfect. So just want to make sure everybody understands. You don't always go from one thing to the next. I mean, no. It's a path, but what I want to bring this back to is many times we overlook the transferable skills that we can learn in corporate, right? Oh, and so many times people talk about you're anti-corporate. Like, no, I really, really like corporate a lot. I learned a lot. But can you talk to me about some of the transferable skills that you actually learned in corporate that served you really, really well? Some of them you already talked about, but this is for the person who maybe was running and wasn't paying attention before, but now they're like fully on with what you're talking about. But those transferable skills that corporate gave you that you're now effectively leveraging today to even make more impact on your clients as an entrepreneur. Can you talk about a little bit about that?
I'd say the biggest one is probably communication skills. Definitely is a big one for me because I find that that's one that often is missing when my clients come to me. One of the main issues they have is communication within their business. So learning communication skills, leadership skills, if you're a leader. I think, organization, business, project management. I mean, when you have to do your own business, you have to wear all the caps. And suddenly, you go from having a team of 100 people working for you, doing the marketing, the PR, you're having to do it all. But you actually know how to do a lot of it. And that's when you realize that it's, corporate does bring you a very 360, well-rounded package because you don't just know how to do this little thing. You actually know how to do the rest. Or if you don't, you understand what good looks like. So like I never wrote proposals because I had a department to doing it. But when I found myself having to do my own, I knew what good looked like, and I could actually, I can actually do something that's at a high standard, and higher standard probably than most people do, because I know what the really, high net worth clients expect, and I can try and give that to my clients. So I think, yeah, it gives you a level also of like what is good, what is not good. People who've never worked in a big company, they don't have any reference points. So I think those are also things that are helpful, and just, yeah, an amazing network. Most of my business is coming through my network. So that's also one of the really important things you take away from corporate and build it while you're still there, because I think I didn't put enough thought and effort into doing that.
Yeah. So those kinds of transferable skills, and when you talk about communication, you talk about leadership, I love the reference to really understanding what great looks like. And it's one of those things, like, I'm going to put my hand up here. And like I said, if you're not watching the video version, you should, because I'm literally putting my hand up. This is one of the things that I've realized, that when you're in corporate, because you are so specialized in what it is that you do, like, I did sales and sales leadership, and you and I've talked about before, I managed a business that was $100 million across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But I was doing one thing all the day, all the time. And when I needed a legal document, there was the team of people. When we had to compliance things, there was a whole team of people, marketing, blah, blah, blah. And as you start to realize that there are a lot of transferable skills, it's just one other benefit that you have when the time comes that you decide you want to build something on your own. Now, I put my hand up because, have you ever gotten stuck in like this paralysis analysis because you're trying to figure out how to do something and you don't have the specialist that's with you anymore?
Yeah.
Has that happened to you, Maria?
Yeah, absolutely.
It happens to so many of us. How do you overcome that?
Well, now you have ChatGPT, right?
And Gemini and Claude and Grok.
Yeah. Well, I think, frankly, there was a lot of stuff I didn't know when I started my business. Well, I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I spent a lot of time, and actually I went down a few rabbit holes with that. And I think that's one of the traps as a new entrepreneur you can fall into is, you realize there's a lot you don't know and that you have to learn. And, you learn one thing and then you're trying to do something, and then you realize you have to learn some other, to do this, you need to do that. And you can very quickly go into this learning trap where you're learning, and you're not doing, and you're not executing on what you've learned. So I think that's one of the traps I fell a bit into at the beginning, where I was like trying to learn everything, and I wasn't really actually doing stuff, because while I was doing that, I wasn't doing my business development or stuff. But yeah, nowadays everything is available. You can find, well, first of all, you can find it online, but also you have to build. I think you can't do it alone. It's like everything, even if you're a solopreneur, you need to build a network around you of people in similar, on the similar journey. Join community, reach out to people in your network, and people love to help. So go and ask people who are like a few steps ahead of you, and just reach out. That's what I did. I reached out to everybody I knew that started their business before me and said, hey, would you be okay to have, give me 15 minutes of your time just to ask you a few tips? And everybody said yes. Nobody said no. People love to help. And the great thing about this is it reinforces your relationship with them. They have a vested interest then in your success. So they will try and push you and help you. And it's all positive. So, yeah. Yeah,
I love these tidbits of wisdom. And kind of before we start to move in a different direction, talk about really how you're helping people today specifically. One of the things that I find very inspirational about you and your journey, and having, worked in different countries and, as you mentioned, all different areas within big corporate and outside of corporate, is I know that you have this really like giving heart. You're someone who is consistently volunteering, and whether that is helping people who are on the entrepreneurial track who need assistance, or helping those that want to improve in terms of their public speaking. But talk to us about some of the, and I would say anybody who doesn't know Maria, you should go check out her LinkedIn profile, because it shows a lot of the different ways that she's given back consistently throughout her career. But I'm always curious, when you have we all have the same 168 hours in a week, but where you intentionally find time to be able to give back to others, what's the genesis of that, and kind of how has that continued or how do you continue to find time to help others?
Well, you just make the time. I think if it's important, you make it a priority. For me, I think it's important to pay it forward and give back to others, because people do it for you. So you want to return the favor. And the world is just a better place when you do that. So for me, it's something that's always been important to. I didn't have time to do it as much when I was in my corporate life. So and my husband worked in charity. So for 8 years, while we were in New York and London, my husband was full-time working in a charity, in two different charities. And I always felt like he was the bright side, I was the dark side, I was like working with the rich people who were buying stuff they didn't need, and he was like giving back. So he was balancing my karma. Yeah. And so the minute I left the corporate world, I was like, I'm going to make time for this. And so I decided to spend much more time. And now that I'm my own boss and I can manage my own schedule, I can decide, the time I want to put in or not to help people. And, I believe in karma. I think all the good you put out comes back to you. So it's purely selfish.
Yeah. Well, it's exactly what I think. Maria Kelly, selfish. No, not even close. Not even close. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with me and with us here. And so in the very beginning, I talked about like someone who is an eternal optimist and problem solver. You've demonstrated that through everything from, getting started with your 3-line CV in the very beginning to moving up, solving problems consistently, looking for input from others. And also, you've talked about it in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, not only optimistically looking to solve issues, but like actively solving problems for yourself, for others. And I'm really curious, you've kind of given us a little bit of an insight earlier, but how are you impacting others? How are you helping others today in your business specifically?
In my business, specifically. So very excited that I got my AI trainer certificate, as I told you. Mm-hmm. And so now I've wrapped that all into a few things. Well, I wrapped it all. Yes, I wrapped it all into a program to start with. So I'm doing my first group program. A lot of firsts this year. So that's really cool.
Well done.
So my first group program, which is starting on the 22nd of September, where I'm going to make AI simple for business owners, how to integrate AI into their business and work on the actual growing the business as well as integrating AI into it. So that's one thing. And then I'm doing workshops or training days for them on specifically AI, but also I still do some team building group sessions as well that are not AI focused, but I want to do a bit more on AI because I feel like there's really a lot of opportunity there. And to be honest, that's where companies are putting their budgets right now. So you go where the money is, and and that's what I'm planning to do for the next few months. See how it goes. Put your feet in the water. I think that's the entrepreneurial life. You try something, see if it works, readjust. Or change direction if it's not, and get feedback from people. But it's exciting to try something new.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, as you're trying something new, as you're looking once again to solve problems, and you are taking what you learned in corporate, right? Once again, you find where there are problems that your client is wanting to place dollars or euros or whatever pounds behind. Yeah, and you find that and you go out and you solve that problem. I think it's great. But before I wrap things up, or I've got one other question to ask you. I wouldn't want to leave here like we haven't made everything sound like it's perfect. There's consistency in terms of what you're doing. There's intentionality in terms of what you're doing. But what are the biggest, or what's the biggest lesson that you've learned from any setbacks that have come? I know I've been through many setbacks that have affected either me, my businesses, but the setbacks that have happened for you, not to you, for you, and how they are helping you in the business transformations that you are consistently doing in your entrepreneurial journey.
I think it definitely builds your resilience to start your own business, because I don't know you, but me, when I left my corporate life, I felt like I had a reputation, I have a track record, I have a network, I have, I was a top shot and all. And you walk out of there pretty sure you say, I can start a business tomorrow and that's going to go fine. And you know what? It doesn't. It's not that easy. And there's many nights, sleepless nights, where you're lying awake thinking, have I just made the biggest mistake of my life? Like, it's constantly questioning yourself. But then there's also somewhere where you have to trust the journey, believe in what you're doing, and push forward, because nothing's going to happen overnight. So I think there's a lot of resilience. There's a lot of also self-awareness that needs to be built, because you need to know when to push, but you also need to know when to pivot, because, some people just, obstinately go against the wall. Well, the wall's still going to be there. You need to find a way of walking around it. So there's a lot of things. I think there's a lot of self-reflection when you become an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of building more awareness. And if you are not good at doing that personally, getting the people around you, surrounding yourself with the right people who can hold up that mirror and give you feedback and support you when times get tough, I would say. But so I think I learned a lot about myself, swallowing my ego, and accepting that there's things I'm good at and others I'm not that good at, and letting go of perfectionism. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I mean, you don't want
that makes two of us.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be an entrepreneur and perfectionist. It's better done than good, and than perfect. And that was something that took me a long time. I spent so much time at the beginning tweaking every little detail instead of going out and getting the client. So those are the few lessons that I've learned the hard way, and I'm sure there's more to come.
Yeah. So, and I appreciate you sharing that, because it really is. It's about, that's that progress over perfection, and it is being able to be much more self-aware in terms of what is happening, reading or what's happening around you, in the macro environment as well, and then also that whole term of resilience. All of them are super important. And so, Maria, as we start to land the plane here, I do want to it's just one of these things that I wish that I would have thought about before, but I've thought about it afterwards. And so I want to ask you the question. So if someone would have told you, I think you said it was 2018, something like that, when you finished your corporate career, 2019, 2020?
2020. Well, okay. 2020.
All right, 2020. January 2020, right, before that. Yeah. And so if you would have looked 5 years ahead and said, okay, well, look, you're going to be here and talking to Billy and a lot of people from around the globe, you probably wouldn't have seen kind of where you are right now. But now that you know that these things happen over time, if you could leave yourself one message, because what you've been on, the trajectory you've been on for the last 5 years, and it's a trajectory that it sounds like to me that you want to continue. But there are moments where it's really challenging, and you have setbacks, and you have high moments, and then the kind of things keep going. But if you could think about Maria Kelly in, I don't know, September, October, 3 years from now.
Yeah.
What is the one message that you want to leave yourself? Well, actually not for yourself, but for future Maria. Yeah. What's the one lesson that you want to leave?
For future. So I'm sending future Maria a message.
You're sending future Maria a message.
It's probably believe in yourself. You can do this. Whatever this is, I don't know what it is. So and I'm open to it being something completely different to what it is. So I think it's just believe in yourself, and whatever. As you said, I'm an eternal optimist, and there you are. The loop is closed.
Okay, believe in yourself. So I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot. And so if I think about these conversations, literally they fly by, and I'm thinking, you're talking about how much you loved your job, your 3-line CV, and just being able to go in and paying your bills. And you went from paying your bills to literally running an entire division globally, living in 4 different countries, having multiple opportunities, and consistently being optimistic about the way that you lived your life. You solve your corporate problems, and even continue to build in your entrepreneurial journey, staying open, adaptable, and even fighting a little bit of perfection along the way. And so you're consistently incorporating your new learnings. And today, your journey has you helping other corporate and smaller companies, founders, to be able to continue to move forward, taking a lot of your corporate and life experience, infusing a lot of the different tools that can help them not just be much more efficient, but also much more effective. And so I know that I get a chance to chat with you all the time and I can ask Maria Kelly anything that I want. But I know there's so many people that are like, well, just ask her the question, Billy. So I'm going to ask you the question. Maria, what is the best way for the Going Along family to connect with you, to find out more about what it is that you're doing and how you can help them?
Well, I hang out on LinkedIn every day. So that's the best place to find me. You just look up my handle, which is Ask Maria Kelly.
There you go. See, everybody now knows why I keep saying Ask Maria Kelly. We close loops here.
We do.
Awesome. Well, listen, also, Going Along family, one thing that I do want to add to what Maria just said is do yourself a favor and do Maria a favor. When you reach out to her on LinkedIn, because I know you're going to reach out to her on LinkedIn, please let her know that you have already invested time listening to today's conversation, watching it on YouTube, whatever the case may be, because it's going to allow the two of you to continue the conversation and be much like have something in common. So make sure you let her know that you've been here watching and listening. And so it's just going to help the two of you. So other than that, Maria, I really want to say thank you for deciding to invest your time with me, the entire Going Along family, from the bottom of my heart. Really, really appreciate you joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. It was a pleasure.